Once, when the world was a little younger, in the heart of a distant land, there was a kingdom with a very poor judge. Now when I say poor, I don't mean that he had no money, but for every coin this man had, he lacked any sense. And for all the sense that he lacked, he made up for it in stubborn-headedness. It is this poor excuse for a justice system that led the little girl Ida slowly up the path to Hangman's Hill. A crowd had gathered to watch the stripped and beaten man make his way slowly up the hill to his final end. The only sound was that of the ragged boots on his otherwise naked body dragging across the wooden platform, and the sound of poor Ida's tears. The sentence was read out, and they asked him for his final words. The man, his eyes brimming with tears, stared straight into the crowd and said, "I will send someone for Ida. Have they horns on their head or a halo? I will send someone for her." The platform banged open, the rope creaked as it pulled taut, and the crowd moved away as Ida flung herself forward and wrapped her arms around her father's legs. And as she sobbed, the trees stood in silent witness, without scorn or comfort, until she sank, exhausted, into their roots. There are many curious happenings that can occur when a body has died. There are scientists whose job it is to study and name these physical reactions to death. But in the era of our story, what happened to Ida's father was known only as angel lust. Ida didn't see her father's body twitch as it prepared itself for a forever of stillness. She didn't see his seeds spill forth to the ground. All she saw was the silhouette of a town in the distance that had left her with nothing. The dirt below the gallows began to swirl and shift. A low groan prompted Ida from her tears, and she watched on in horror as the earth swelled, drawing itself up into arms and legs. Its eyes blinked open and fixed a stony gaze on Ida, and she realized with a start that she was looking at a mirror image of herself made entirely of dirt, with knotted weeds and roots for hair. The creature opened its mouth and spoke in a voice like winds through the tree. "Be not afeard, for I am as you, sister from the earth. Come, let me dry your tears and tend to your care in the absence of our father." On hearing this, Ida collapsed into the Dirt Sister's arms, sobbing uncontrollably. "Where am I supposed to go? I have no family, no home, no father. What did the hangman plan for me? The judge, the king? I am lost." The Dirt Sister wound her arms around Ida and pulled her close, and a muddy kiss was planted on her forehead. "I will care for you and bolster you up until you wear a crown on your head. Come, sister of mine, I will find us a new home." As they left the gallows, Ida slipped her father's wedding ring off his finger and threaded it on a chain around her neck. The Dirt Sister wound a python-like grip around Ida's wrist and led her down through the town. Despite them being the same size, Ida was struggling along behind her at this fast pace that was set by her sister. And she was just about to ask that they take a break, 5 seconds to catch her breath, when suddenly they stopped. Ida knew the house, of course. Everyone in town knew the house of the executioner, the very man that had hung her father. A cold chill ran the length of Ida's body. and the Dirt Sister stepped forward, spread her hands wide, and began to chant. Hear my song and note it well, as guilty conscience burns. Feel your life flitter away like ash into the urn. Through the window, Ida thought she saw a body fall to the ground. But when she was dragged inside by the vice-like grip of the Dirt Sister, all she found was a pile of ash on the carpet. The Dirt Sister released Ida and immediately set about preparing dinner of thick soup and crusty bread, after which Ida, exhausted by grief, fell into a deep sleep. Ida awoke to the stone-cold gaze of the Dirt Sister's eyes boring into her. "Sister mine," said the whispered voice, "I feel it is time we staked a claim on a nicer abode." And with that, the tight grip wound around Ida's wrist again and pulled her through the town. Ida looked up at the building they had stopped in front of. A large building, impressive to anyone who was walking past, but it gave Ida the shudders. It was the home of the poor judge. The Dirt Sister strode forward, spread her arms wide, and lifted her voice. "Hear my words, and note them well, your conscience now laid bare. Turn to dust, and breathe your last, like ash upon the air." Ida didn't see anyone fall to the ground this time. She didn't have to. From within the walls of the building came a blood-curdling scream that turned Ida's body cold. Inside the house was like a dream to Ida. It was all carved oak and plump pillars. She could almost ignore the scattering of ash that blew across the floor. Inside the kitchen, she could hear the Dirt Sister preparing a luscious roast. And after she had eaten, Ida settled down into a deep, restful sleep. Ida awoke in the middle of the night to the Dirt Sister's stone-cold gaze. "Never fear," said the sister. "We will leave this place that troubles you so. I have a grander residence in mind for you." Suddenly, Ida thought back to the words that she had first said to her sister. What had they planned for me? The hangman, the judge, the king. The hangman who had hung her father, the judge who had passed the sentence, the king that had made the law. Ida turned the idea over and over in her head, fearful that one more person was to die because of her grief. Over and over she turned the idea until she fell into a troubled sleep. She was jerked awake the next morning by the vice-like grip of her sister that pulled her from her bed and through the town. "Wait," said Ida, almost tripping as the Dirt Sister stopped suddenly and turned to face her. "I need to go to the bathroom," said Ida. The Dirt Sister looked her up and down. "I will go with you," she said. Ida carefully explained that she couldn't go with the Dirt Sister watching. The Dirt Sister folded her arms and regarded her coolly. "I will count while you are gone. Do not take too long, or I will get angry." Ida quickly agreed and hurried away all the same. Ida quickly ducked around the corner, out of sight, and, looking around, spied a young lord striding confidently down the street. She quickly put her fingers in her ears and began to dance. The lord approached her hesitantly and tapped her on the shoulder. "Excuse me, miss, what are you doing?" Ida smiled at him as if it was obvious. "I'm dancing," she said. "But I hear no music." She goes, "Yes, my father was a musician," and she held up the ring on the string around her neck. "And his ring is magic. If I put it on, put my fingers in my ears, my head is filled with the most beautiful music you've ever heard." "I was on my way to the castle to present it to the king as a gift, but I feared that I would not get an audience with him. The Lord looked her up and down and agreed, well, yes, a peasant such as her would not get an audience with the king. But I could take it for you, he said, thinking of the praise that such a unique gift would bring. She smiled, would you? And took the ring off and handed it over to him. He took it from her and went to put it on, as if to try the ring for himself. She held out her hand and said, oh no, I'm not actually sure how long the magic will last. I would hate for you to try the ring, waste the magic, and then present a useless object to the king, and appear a fool. The Lord hated the idea of appearing a fool in court, so, quickly, tucking it in his pocket, he headed off at a fast pace towards the castle. Ida smiled, turned and walked back to her sister to relent to the vice-like grip, as they too made their way to the castle. It was not long before they reached the old stones and towering turrets of the castle. Ida gave a quick look around looking for the Lord, but there was no one to be seen. The Dirt Sister spread her arms wide and strode confidently towards the castle and opened her mouth to chant. Hear my words and mark them well. Your guilty conscience starts to swell. Feel it burn and feel it rust. I'll see you when you've turned to dust. The Dirt Sister reached out a hand for Ida, but Ida was already climbing the stairs and dashing through the corridors of the castle. She dove her hands into the nearest fireplace, covering them with ash, before hurrying back to her sister's side. The throne room, it's covered in ash, she said. The Dirt Sister smiled, a peaceful smile. Then live here, said the Dirt Sister. Live here in peace, for I have killed those who have done you wrong. And with that, the Dirt Sister collapsed into a pile of dirt, twigs and mud. Ida slipped back into the castle and stuck her head into the throne room. There she saw all the courtiers gathered around the king, who was looking quite baffled, with his fingers in his ears as he strained to listen to music that would never play. Ida chuckled to herself, left the throne room, back past the castle, and out past the sister that had collapsed to the dirt. Ida took up the judge's position, donning his clothes, his wig, and living in his house. But her judgments came from a heart of fairness and mercy, which meant that a lot of wrongly accused townsfolk came to live happily ever